Welcome back to the Danger Zone. In today's episode, the third video in our Pantera Autographed Guitar Series, we're going to fix the many factory defects in the body of this guitar that is allegedly autographed by Pantera. Alright, so now we've got to make a router template for this piece. This is the cover plate for the back of the guitar. This covers the back of the electronics area, I guess you could say. So we'll need that. So I've got a special router bit here. It's got a ball bearing here that will ride on a template. So we're going to need that. We're also going to need a router. So I'm just going to preface what I'm about to say with a little bit of a disclaimer. If you're thinking about doing any kind of woodworking using power tools, I would strongly advise you to get some actual training, in-person training, using tools from a professional woodworker. So there's probably somewhere in your city, if you look up woodworking lessons, you'll be able to find a course that explains to you how to safely use power tools. So I'm assuming you're a guitar player. You're going to want to make sure you have all your fingers, right? And working with power tools is a very easy way to lose your fingers. These are just two of the tools I'm going to be using in this video. The first one is a jigsaw, which if you keep your finger away from the blade and obviously your other body parts, you should be all right. This one is not super dangerous in my opinion. What is a bit more dangerous in my opinion is a router. So a router spins between 8 and 26,000 RPM. To put that in perspective, the engine in your car will idle somewhere around 1,000 RPM. So this thing spins ridiculously fast. It will, if you hit the blade while it's moving, it will remove your skin faster than a heartbeat. And I mean, I don't even want to think about what happens if it gets into your bone. So there's a few things that I will touch on that is very important to remember about using a router. The first thing is, if you're going to be putting a bit into the router, and your router may be different than this one, but this principle applies to all routers, you'll want to make sure that you insert the full shank of the bit into the router, and then you're going to want to tighten it with a wrench, and you're going to want to make sure it's tight, because if this thing pops out of here at 26,000 RPM, it's very dangerous. The other thing I want to suggest is if you are changing the cutter, make sure it is unplugged. Never work on this cutter if it is plugged in, because if this thing turns on while you're putting the cutter in, again, it's going to be very bad for you. One other thing, when you plug the router in, one thing I always do is I make sure that I'm holding the router in such a way that if this switch is accidentally on, or if it faults in somehow in the on position, when I plug it in, it doesn't just go crazy and then all of a sudden I got a spinning router that's on and I can't grab to turn it off. So I always like to hold it in a position like this with the cutter pointed away from anything and plug it in just to confirm that the switch is off. And of course, when you go to turn it on, you want to make sure you have a solid grip on this thing, because they can kick. You definitely want to make sure you have a good handle on it before you turn it on. But again, I would strongly suggest get some formal woodworking training if you're going to be using anything like a router. And it should go without saying, but always wear safety glasses. We don't need this right now. We need this and this right now. So the thing we need to figure out is, how thick does our router template need to be? We're only going to need to cut this in. This only needs to be, 3/16 of an inch. So our template should be at least a 1/2 inch thick to use with this particular router bit, because we're not going very deep into the surface of the guitar, so that it'll make sense when I show you. So I've got these pieces of it's like 3/16 thick fiberboard. So Normally if we were cutting like a pickup hole or something that's deep, this would be just the fine thickness. But because we're cutting something that's so thin, what I'm going to have to do is make this template and then use the template to cut a piece of plywood and then use a piece of plywood to cut the actual hole. It'll all work out. I promise this is a good way to do this. I got my scrap pieces of 4x6 here. This will just allow me to work on the workbench and, you know, cut through it and everything. Got our little cover here. Okay. Make ourselves a bit of a hole through there. Okay, so we're close, pretty close to that line, and now I'm gonna have to get the rest of this by sanding it just so we don't go over. Okay, so I've just got like a round file here, and I might actually just try using this file, see how far we can get with this. There's just a couple of spots I'd like to smooth out just a little bit. Just gonna use a little bit of this sandpaper to do that. Okay, so hopefully I didn't go too far. Hopefully I didn't go too far with that. Perfecto. We got our template now. So now we have to use our template to cut the plywood to make a thicker template. So I'm just gonna write on here right now top so that we don't get confused, because that would suck. Okay, so we'll use this to make our template. So the other thing we got to do is cut a hole into this because I don't have a plunge router bit, so I got to have a hole to start the router bit in. Okay, so that was our first pass with the router. So I'm just going to drop the router bit down. Just going to lower the bit, I guess, down to there. That should be all right. And we'll do our second pass. Okay, now we're just going to lower it a bit more. So the problem I'm having is the bearing on the router is thicker than the actual cutter, because this is actually a router bit for it comes with a door hinge jig for cutting hinges into a door, so it's not really meant for this. So what I'm getting at is this centerpiece here is my problem. So I'm just going to take my jigsaw and cut this centerpiece out, and then should be fine after that. All right, this should work now. Let's hope. At this point, we should have our actual template we're going to use to cut on the guitar with. Okay. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure I can get this to fit in here. It's just a little bit tight on Very close to being perfect, so. I mean, that's pretty darn good. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this on top of another piece of plywood and just try get my depth of my router set correctly before I actually go ahead and cut the guitar with this. Okay, now again, because this, the router bit I have is not a plunge router bit, I'm going to have to actually cut a hole into this. The actual guitar obviously has a hole in it, so it's not a big deal, but yeah. Okay, so I got a hole in here just so I can start my cut with the router, and then, yeah, I'm just going to screw this right into my tabletop here. Okay, that's that. Oh, just gonna see if this fits in here. Boom. So now we know we got the right depth for our router bit, and we also know our template will work in our guitar. So, as you can see, it's nice and smooth. So, perfect. All right, so what we got to do is locate this plate. We got to locate this plate on the back here with these screw holes. So I'm going to put some tape on here, and then we'll trace around it, and then that's how we'll line up our jig. Okay, so I got a partial line at least. That'll help me line the jig up. Or the template, I guess. The next step is our good friend super glue. That's right, we're gonna super glue to the tape this template. All right, that should be way more than we need. Okay, so now we gotta line this up. Now, the only problem is I don't have a way to actually attach this guitar to the workbench, so we'll use our old template. All right, that's fine. Okay, moment of truth here. Ooh, glue's still wet. Beautiful. So this is the recess we just cut into this guitar with the router. And then this is a cover plate for the recess. So you can see that the recess is now smooth to the surface of the guitar. And while I got my camera out here, take a look at this. So this hole here and this hole here is not supposed to be there. So this piece here is loose. Another problem we got is if you can see right here, that is actually what the post for the bridge goes into. So it's really only half in the wood. So I have a feeling that's going to be pretty loose. I'm going to glue down this loose piece here, and I'm also going to epoxy in this I don't even know what it's called, what the post screws into there, that metal piece. So again, we'll use some of super glue. This is just the regular thickness stuff. hold this down with the screwdriver and then just kind of all right, there we go. So I'm just using some Gorilla Glue 5-minute epoxy here. Yeah, okay, so that's, I guess, glued in now. We got that stud epoxied in there now, so that's good. I was thinking about these holes in here, and I was thinking, you know what? I don't want to just leave them like that, because, I don't know. To me, it just seems like I'm going all this work, I might as well fix them. So I made these pieces of wood. So what I'm going to do is, I got this little one here to kind of fits in there like that, and then I got this other little piece, and it kind of just fits in there like that. So that's not really in there. This piece is not in there super good right now, but I'll get it all lined up perfectly before I glue it. The next thing that I noticed about this guitar is it's got this weird output jack on it. Like, I've never had a guitar with an output jack like that. And this one was actually missing, so I just ordered one off of Amazon. But the problem is this hole is a little bit too narrow in diameter, so I'm gonna have to open that up a little bit. The other problem is I don't think that this will actually reach all the way in here and have enough meat left on it to thread the nut on it. Oh yeah. So I got it all the way pushed in, but doesn't quite come in far enough for the threads to be sticking through. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of grinding away on that. So I'm just gonna use this Dremel, and I got like a little sanding drum on it. I hope I can get that to work. Should be able to. So we got it in there now. Had to hog all that out of there, but there we go. So now I'm just gonna glue my little piece of wood in here. So first one I'm gonna start with is just this little guy in here. I'm just smearing the glue into that. Then I'm gonna spray it with some accelerator. That seems to be okay. And then I'm gonna take my piece here, just double check that that still fits. Now I'm gonna epoxy this in here. Now I'm just gonna put this on here. Oh, it's not gonna fit. Oh, dang it. Okay, so we cut that down. Now we're just gonna find something to put on there that's heavy. So I've got that wood block in there, pressing down, and then I got this wood. Whoops, wrong way. Then I got this wood stacked on top. It's not the heaviest thing in the world, but it's what I got right now. That seems to be fine. So I'm just gonna mix up another little bit of epoxy real quick and just kind of go over that area. I'm gonna take this inside to dry. Then what I'm gonna do once it's dry is I'm gonna mix up some more epoxy and just kind of put them in this side of the hole. You've already seen me put epoxy down, so I'm just gonna do that inside, and yeah, take it from there. So the epoxy is dry, and I've filled in the pickup holes where the you can see the new wood through there. I just put a coat of epoxy in there, and you can see I have cut away the tape in all these areas, as well as the area on the back, and that is because I'm going to just spray a coat of black paint in here just to kind of cover up all this mess. I also went ahead and sanded the face of the headstock down, and I taped up the sides. I'm just going to paint the face of this black too. Just finished letting this black paint in the cavities here dry. All right, so you can see we got the inside of the pickup cavities and the fluid rose cavity. Got them painted black. If we turn it over, we've got these cavities painted black inside. So just looking a little bit nicer in my opinion. But anyways, so now we got to spray the front of it with some clear coat. So normally if you're going to put a clear coat on, you would scuff up the existing finish. But if I did that, it would get rid of all the, you know, autographs and stuff. So I'm just going to run it with just clear coat and cross my fingers that it stays on there. So yeah. And then this is a clear coat I'm using. Hopefully that works. I don't know if it will. It's what I got though. So wish me luck. So this is what it looks like after I put the clear coat on it. It's got a bit of orange peel. If you're not familiar with that, it's just the little roughness of the surface. I could probably get that out by buffing this. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, so I think it turned out pretty good aside from the orange peel. So yeah, I'll just put that down there and just briefly show you how the headstock turned out. Turned out great. So looking forward to the next episode in this series where I start putting this thing back together. So that's it for this episode. If you want to see how it all turns out, please subscribe. See you in the next video.